friends, how are you today? Welcome to 5-ish Minute Devotionals. Today we are going to hear a story from the Old Testament, from the book of Genesis, that helps us think about a few things. It helps us think about what it means to move, when people move, what it means to be new someplace, what it means to be an immigrant in a new country. It also helps us think about what it means to make a promise and to keep a promise. So this is the story of Abram and Sarai. It's called Abram and Sarai Find a New Home, and it is from the book of Genesis, chapter 12, verses 1 through 4a, and then chapter 17, verses 1 through 16 is what the story is based on, and I am reading today from the Growing in God's Story Bible. And this is the way the story goes. And as I'm reading, I want you to think about if you have ever moved to a new place. And if you have, I'm wondering if moving maybe felt exciting or did it feel scary? Or if you thought about having to move, do you think it would feel exciting or scary? So let's think about that as we start our story. Abram and Sarai find a new home. Sometimes families move. They move from one neighborhood to another. They move from one city to another. They even move from one country to another. When families move into one country from another, we call them immigrants. That's what Abram and Sarai were, immigrants. They lived in Haran, where their families had always lived. They knew everyone, and everyone knew them. They lived the lives they had always lived, and they did the work their families had always done. They were comfortable in Haran. Okay, so now listen now what's going to happen. They're going to move, and I want you to listen for some promises that God's going to make to them. So here we go. Then God had a plan for them. One day, God said to Abram and Sarai, I want you to move to a new country. I've got a new home for you there. I've got a new life for you. I've got new work for you to do. I want you to live in your new country and work there. Just by living there and doing good, you will make everyone's lives better. Abram and Sarai must have been worried about moving. It's hard to leave what you know, but they left right away for their new country, the land of Canaan. Like all immigrants, they must have felt strange there at first. They must have felt alone. They must have worried what would happen to them in this new place. But when they got to their new country, God met them there. God said to them, I'm going to give you a family. They will live in this new country and call it their own. They will make a home for themselves here. Because you're starting a new family in a new land, I'm giving you new names. Abram, you'll now be called Abraham. Sarai, you'll now be called Sarah. So Abraham and Sarah started all over in their new country, just like many immigrants do today. They had a new place to live. They had new names, they had a new family, and before too long, they began to feel at home. So they had to pick up and move, but God made them some promises, right? He said, if you do this thing I want you to do, there are some things I'm going to promise you. So Abram and Sarai, who became Abraham and Sarah, had to have faith. They had to trust that God was going to keep God's promises. And what were those promises, right? He said, if you move, I'm going to give you a new country, a new home in that new country, a new life in your new home, work for you to do that's going to help other people, and you'll be able to make things better for everyone around you. And then he went on to promise them a new family, right? A family to help them with all of this. So those are big promises that God does wind up keeping, right? God keeps God's promises. And what we learn from that is that we need to keep our own promises, right? Only make a promise that you know you're going to be able to keep. Don't promise something to somebody if you're not going to be able to keep it. So that's the one thing we learn from this story. The other thing that we think about in this story is people who come to our neighborhood, to our community, to our country from other places. Living in Southern California, we are lucky enough to have people all around us who have come from all kinds of other countries and places. And we need to think about a couple of things. Number one, how can we help somebody who is new here to get used to being here, to learn how to succeed here and be happy here? And number two, that our way of doing things is not the only way of doing things, right? And we can learn all kinds of wonderful different ways to even just make food or celebrations or languages, customs. There are so many things that we can learn from other people, and we need to take the time to do that. Being a good neighbor, being a good member of the community means taking time to respect and love and cherish and honor everybody that's around us and learning from them and finding ways to make that a part of our lives. And that is work that we all get to do in the world. So think about that this week as you're out at school or soccer or wherever you might be out with your family, and what can you do to help welcome somebody into the community and to help understand what you can learn from that person. All right, let's end today with our blessing the way we do every week. On this day and all days, may the Spirit of God swirl around you and leave you with a grin. And may that grin turn into a smile, and may that smile turn into an act of loving kindness. And together we will be a chorus of love, living in the way of Jesus in our community. Amen. Be well, my friends.